Revealed, incredible journey of abandoned twins and their father's touching transformation after. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows over the baseball diamond where laughter echoed. Emma and Grace, 7-year-old twins with bright smiles, ran hand in hand, their giggles rising above the familiar crack of bats and cheer of their small Midwestern town. In this picturesque place, summer felt endless, wrapped in the sweet smell of apple pie cooling on windowsills and the warmth of community gatherings. But the twins carried a weight that not even the brightest of summer days could erase. Abandoned by their mother, they were marked with the label of unwanted. As they played, the girls watched older kids exchanging secrets, unsure if they were included or just on the outside. Laughter moments turned to silence as whispers fluttered around them. Their hearts tightened, not knowing what it meant to be the talk of the town for the wrong reasons. Little did they know, under the calm surface of their lives, a battle was brewing. Enter Joe, the battle-hardened neighbor whose kind eyes told stories of resilience. He had seen the worst of humanity but remained a beacon of hope. Joe found the twins sitting alone after the other kids had walked away. He crouched down to their level. "Hey, you two. Ever tried homemade apple pie? I think it's the best medicine for a rough day." With a grin and a wink, he offered a slice, the gesture crackling with warmth. The girls' smiles returned, if only for a moment. Flashbacks of their father, Mark, hit him like a freight train. The man who had once been full of dreams, his hands skillful with engines, now crumbled beneath the guilt of his wife's departure. He was a shadow of the father they needed, watching from a distance, paralyzed by his own shame. He had heard the whispers too, their pain lying heavy on his heart. If only he could muster the courage to reach out and wipe away their tears. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days turned to weeks and Joe's heart swelled with determination, urging Mark to follow through on the fatherhood that had been denied so long. The townsfolk shared concerned looks as Mark hesitated at every step, his battle with depression weighing him down. But standing on the sidelines, watching Emma and Grace spread joy like sunshine on a rainy day, something began to stir within him. Remembering Joe's words about honor and perseverance ignited a flicker of resolve. But just as hope hovered, life dealt its crippling blows. Mark's old truck broke down, finances dwindled like autumn leaves falling. He felt suffocated by inadequacy, a father unable to provide, making the journey to his daughter's side a mountain too steep to climb. The pain of rejection loomed, almost driving the already fragile bond away completely. In a final, heart-wrenching confrontation, Mark faltered. Voices of the townsfolk whispered as he stood before the girls, raw with emotion, their surprise palpable. The air around them tinged with tension, reminding all of the community's eyes upon them. Could Joe's belief in redemption guide him through the storm? Mark faced a crossroads. Would he gather the strength to embrace his daughters and relinquish the chains of fear that bound him? As the sun dipped even lower, casting a golden light over the upcoming community gathering, Mark's heart beat louder. Could he rise to the occasion and reclaim his family? With anticipation thick in the air, all that remained was a moment, a flicker of hope where love and despair danced perilously close to one another. As the community gathering got underway, a cheerful buzz filled the air, with families setting up picnic tables and stringing colorful bunting from tree branches. Children raced about, darting between legs and giggling as they chased after a stray dog. Emma and Grace stood together, clutching each other's hands tightly, watching the scene before them. Their hearts raced, not just from excitement but from anxiety. What would this day bring? Mark stood just beyond the crowd, a hesitant figure half hidden behind a tree. Each laugh from the twins struck him like a drumbeat in his chest. Memories flooded his mind, family outings, laughter shared over ice cream, the warmth of holding them close. Could he find the strength to step into that warm sunlight again? Joe, busy flipping burgers on a portable grill, glanced over and sensed Mark's turmoil. With a firm nod, he motioned for Mark to join, a silent invitation like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. But instead of walking forward, Mark stayed put, caught between his desires and the dread of judgment that clung to him. What right did he have? Emma noticed Mark's hesitant stance. At that moment, she squeezed Grace's hand tighter and whispered, "What if he came back today?" Hope flickered in her blue eyes while uncertainty loomed over Grace's. "I don't know. What if he doesn't want us?" Grace replied, her faith shaken like a fragile leaf in the wind. Suddenly, a loud cheer erupted from the crowd, drawing their attention to the field where a local band started to play. The clashing melody of guitars and drums filled the air, bringing people to their feet. Countless families danced, children jumped, and for a fleeting moment, all was right in the world. But even as laughter resounded, Mark remained frozen, a silent storm brewing within him. Joe, sensing the shift, took it upon himself. He wiped his hands on his apron, then approached Mark. "It's time, my friend," he urged, his voice warm but firm. "They need you more than you realize." Mark finally turned to face Joe, his breathing shaky. "But what if they look at me with disappointment? What if they blame me for everything?" "Then you own it, Mark. You stand there and say, 'I'm sorry.' That's all it takes. Love isn't perfect, it's real. And they are ready to hear you, I promise." Mark opened his mouth, but no words came. The twins were dancing now, arms in the air, faces gleaming with joy. They looked so carefree. Could they really forgive him? As if sensing his struggle, Emma suddenly darted towards him. Grace followed, hesitation marking her steps. "Daddy," Emma called out, her voice cutting through the noise. Mark's heart raced, and for a moment, time stood still. But just then, a strong gust of wind swept through the gathering, sending decorations fluttering into the air like confetti. The moment felt suspended, caught in the balance between the past and the future, each second stretching impossibly long. Would he finally move? Would he take the first step toward the redemption Joe spoke of? In that heartbeat of silence, Emma reached him first, her eyes wide with hope, and Grace clutched Emma's shirt, uncertainty clouding her heart. They were all waiting for him to embrace them, waiting for their father to awaken from his fear. As the last slice of daylight faded, illuminating everything in a soft, golden glow, Mark swallowed hard. With the sound of music and laughter swirling around him, all the doubts began to fade at last. He took a step forward, then another, while the eyes of the entire town watched, igniting the possibility of the love they all craved. What could happen next? Would he embrace them and finally break the chains of his past? Would this be the moment everything changed? Heart pounding, he took one last breath and stepped into the light. Mark's heart thundered in his chest as he stepped closer to the twins. Each step felt heavy, yet the laughter of the crowd softened the weight of his fear, reminding him of the joy he once shared with his daughters. He could see Emma's smile shining like sunshine, and it drew him forward, inch by inch. "Hey, Daddy!" Emma's voice rang out again, this time tinged with a burst of joy. Grace held back, her eyes darting between her sister and Mark. The moment hung between them, fragile but full of promise. Mark crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with Emma. "Hey, sweetheart," his voice was a whisper, almost lost to the music. He saw Emma's excitement, but noticed the glimmer of doubt in Grace's eyes. "It's really you," Emma said, her voice barely above a breath. "Yeah, it's me," he replied, biting the inside of his cheek. Doubt clouded his emotions. Could he tell them everything? Would they understand? Grace hesitated before stepping forward, fear written across her tiny features. You came," she said softly. "But will you stay?" The question curled around his heart like a vine, tightening and twisting, waiting for his answer. He hesitated. This wasn't just about stepping into the light, it was about staying there. "I never wanted to leave," he croaked, his throat tight. I thought it would be better if I stayed away." The wind swirled around them, catching the music, wrapping them in its embrace. The exhilaration in the air mixed with a tension that crackled like electricity. "Remember our sunset picnics?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with hope. "We can do that again, right? I want to see you every day." Mark nodded, fighting back tears. "I want that too." But would they still want him once the truth came to light? How could they forget the broken promises? Grace stepped closer, still cautious. "But if you were sad, why didn't he come back before?" He felt the weight of that question settle heavily between them. I was scared. I didn't know how to face you." Their gazes held him, unwavering and wide-eyed, a mix of innocence and understanding that churned within him. The laughter around them dimmed as the community felt their stillness, like the air thickening with unspoken words. He breathed deeply, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. "I made mistakes. I hurt you by not being here, and I'm really, really sorry for that. I can't change the past, but I want a chance to make it right. I want to be your dad. The dad you deserve." For a beat, silence enveloped them. Mark could feel his heart racing as he scanned his daughter's faces for a sign of approval or rejection. Emma threw her arms around him, the warmth of her embrace igniting sparks within him. "I forgive you, Daddy," she exclaimed, squeezing tight. Grace watched, uncertainty flickering across her face, but then she stepped forward too, small arms wrapping around him, joining her sister. "Okay, I think I can forgive you too," she whispered, almost shyly. Relief flooded Mark, washing over him, smoothing away his edges. In that moment, it felt like something inside him shifted, like a cage creaking open. Love, raw and unfiltered, pulsed through the air between them. The cheers of the crowd faded into the background as he held his girls close, feeling their warmth envelop him like a beacon of hope. They were together, and that was all that mattered right now. But as the moment swelled with promise, Mark sensed the lingering shadows of his past waiting just outside the light. Could he truly be the father they needed? And what if the community he had abandoned? Would they welcome him back too? Shivers ran down his spine as he gazed around, knowing their journey had just begun, not only as a family, but as a man seeking redemption. Would he be strong enough to do it? Would they be strong enough for him? As the sun dipped below the horizon, the last rays fading into darkness, Mark held his daughters tightly, feeling the weight of his choices. This was a beginning, but it also was a challenge. The haunting question lingered, echoing in his mind. Could he truly rise from the ashes of his past? Mark could hardly breathe as he stood in the fading light, the laughter of the crowd a distant hum. Time felt suspended, as though he had cocooned himself in this precious moment with Emma and Grace. Yet, the silence around them was like an uninvited guest, amplifying the fear lurking beneath the surface. "Can we go home now?" Emma asked, her bright eyes flickering with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Home. The word sent a rush of warmth through him, yet it also squeezed his heart in ways he didn't want to explore. He had abandoned the home they once shared, left it in disrepair, just as he had left his family. Mark stood up slowly, assessing the weight of the world in his daughter's eyes. "Yeah, let us go home," he managed, but a storm brewed within him. Could he walk into that house again and make it feel like a home? As they began to navigate through the crowd, Mark felt the eyes of the town on him. He could sense the whispers mounting. They were dissecting him, judging him silently. He was no longer just the father of Emma and Grace. He was the man who walked away, the man who hurt them. "Daddy, are they looking at us?" Grace's small voice broke his thoughts, her brows furrowed in confusion. "They're just surprised to see me," he replied lightly, though the truth was much heavier. "People just want to know what's going on." Emma, ever the optimist, squeezed her sister's hand. "It's okay. They'll see how awesome you are. Right, Daddy?" Mark chuckled softly, hoping his smile could mask the rising tension inside him. "I sure hope so." But how could he prove he was worthy of their admiration? As they approached their car, Mark's heart sank in anticipation. The house was like a ghost of his past, haunting him with memories. He remembered laughter echoing through the halls, and the warmth of their little bodies snuggled next to him on the couch. He breathed in sharply as they climbed into the car. "Ready?" he asked, but his voice cracked, betraying his nerves. Emma nodded eagerly, and Grace, still clutching her sister's hand, looked at him, a glimmer of hope mixed with her wariness. Driving through familiar streets felt surreal. Time had changed them. The trees were taller, the shop fronts slightly different. But he could still see glimmers of their old life in every corner. He turned onto their street, his palms gripping the wheel tighter. When they pulled up to the house, emotional energy surged through him. It looked the same, yet different, as if the past and present were colliding. He parked softly and took a moment to gather himself. "Stay right here for a minute, okay? Are you okay, Daddy?" Emma seemed to sense his turmoil, biting her lip. "Yeah, I just need a moment," he assured her, though his heart raced. Mark stepped out into the fading evening light, the chill of the air washing over him. The familiar creaking of the porch welcomed him, but it also felt alien. Would it feel right to cross that threshold again? With every step, the noise faded. He could hear his pulse, the daunting rhythm urging him forward. He opened the door, the hinges squeaking in protest, and stepped inside. The house was still furnished with remnants of their past, toys scattered, a half-finished puzzle on the table. It was filled with memories, and somehow it felt empty. "Daddy!" Emma called from behind him, her small voice a lifeline. He turned to see her standing at the entrance, Grace clutching her leg tightly. "Are you coming?" "Yes." He looked back at the emptiness of the living room, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I'm coming." But as he stepped further inside, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. Could he fill the void? Could he breathe life back into the rooms that had stood silent for so long? Would the community forgive him when they found out he had returned, or would they simply see the remnants of a man who had failed them all? As he faced his daughters, all hope wrapped in their innocent faces, he realized that this was merely the beginning. They stood at the precipice of their renewed family bond and the awaited truths waiting to unfold. "Let us make this home again," he urged, a faint quiver in his voice. But just as their hands came together, a loud knock echoed from the front door. The unexpected sound sent a jolt through him, the momentum shifting. What now? He wondered, anxiety creeping up. Was it a friend? Or someone from the community? Before he could react, another knock rang out, louder this time. The tension in the air thickened. Mark felt the weight of the moment settling around him. The door held the unknown, a catalyst for his next challenge. Would the truth that followed ignite further fractures, or would it become the cornerstone for their healing? Heart racing, he took a deep breath, preparing himself for what lay on the other side. Mark's hand hovered over the door handle, his heart thudding in rhythm with the insistent knocking. With a shared glance at his daughters, who mirrored his uncertainty, he steeled himself for what awaited him outside. Was the world ready to confront him again? He pulled the door open slowly, the hinges creaking louder than ever in the stillness. Standing on the porch was a tall figure, their silhouette framed by the soft glow of the streetlights. As the light caught their face, an unexpected rush of familiarity washed over him. It was Rachel, his sister, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. "Mark," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "You're back." She stepped forward, collapsing him in a tight embrace that felt both foreign and comforting. He could smell the faint hint of her perfume, the same one from years ago. It struck a chord of nostalgia within him. "Rachel," he struggled for words, grasping at a million thoughts swirling in his mind. "I didn't know if anyone would be happy to see me." "I don't know if I am happy or worried," she said, pulling back to look him in the eye. "You just disappeared. We thought you weren't coming back, not after everything." Grace peeked around Mark's waist, her innocent curiosity shining through. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is your Aunt Rachel," he introduced, feeling a flicker of warmth return as he gestured toward her. "She's my sister." Rachel smiled softly, her tension easing as she crouched to Grace's level. "Hello, sweet girl. I missed you. I've missed both of you." She glanced over at Emma, who was still cautiously watching from behind Mark. "Why are you here?" Mark asked, his voice catching. A knot formed in his stomach, mixing the anticipation of family reunion with the weight of unresolved issues. "I came to check on you." Mom and Dad, well, they were worried. They thought perhaps you'd return, but it's been a while. And then news spread that you were home. I had to know. Mark's heart sank at the mention of their parents. The thought of confronting them was like standing on the precipice of a cliff, staring down into an abyss. Would words even be enough to bridge the gap he'd created? "Can we come inside?" Rachel's voice trembled slightly, and he could see that she felt the distance between them, too. "Yeah, sure," he replied, stepping back to let her in. He felt Emma and Grace shift beside him, their small fingers tightening around his waist. As they entered, Rachel took a sweeping glance around, her eyes widening as she took in the remnants of the life they once shared. "God, it feels like time stood still," she whispered, almost to herself. "We've got some things to work through," Mark said quietly, desperately wanting to shield his daughters from the weight of those unspoken realities. Emma's voice broke through the tension. "Can we order pizza? I want pepperoni. And we can have a family night." Rachel chuckled lightly, the sound a welcome balm that eased the air. "A family night sounds perfect." She turned to Mark, her expression earnest. "You need this, Mark. You need them, and they need you." As he watched the flicker of hope dance in his daughter's eyes, a swell of determination rose in him. Perhaps tonight could be the start, not just of a family night but a healing journey. But the moment hung heavy. They had so much to navigate, and Mark had no idea where to begin. Yet, as he looked at Emma and Grace, unsullied by the darkness of the past, he couldn't turn back now. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, followed by a flurry of barking. Mark's heart dropped. "Oh no, not now." "What was that?" Rachel snapped into focus. I think that was Max," he groaned, remembering their dog, a disaster waiting to happen. With a mix of urgency and apprehension, Mark rushed toward the sound, knowing that whatever awaited them could either shatter this fragile moment or somehow contribute to the wholeness he was so desperately trying to reclaim. As he turned the corner, he prayed that this chaos wouldn't deepen the fractures they were trying to heal. What awaited him in the chaos of his home might just hold the key to their family's future. Mark sprinted down the hallway, the barks of Max growing louder with each hurried step. If there was one thing he knew about their overly enthusiastic golden retriever, it was that a chaotic scene was inevitable when he got excited. Images of shattered picture frames and overturned furniture flashed through his mind, but he couldn't let his anxiety swell. Not now. Not tonight. He rounded the corner into the living room, half expecting to find Max in a whirlwind of destruction. Instead, the sight was far different. Max was standing in front of the back door, barking his head off, his tail wagging furiously. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he noticed the wide-open door. Someone must have left it ajar. "Max, no!" he shouted, rushing forward. Before he could grab the doorknob, Rachel rushed in beside him, her face a mask of apprehension. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her eyes darting from Mark to the door. Mark flung the door closed, his heart racing. "Yeah, just the dog. He could have run off." He took a second to gather himself, the adrenaline still coursing through him. This was not how he wanted to start their reunion. He could feel the weight of Rachel's gaze on him, mixing relief with unspoken questions. Then he heard a soft, almost apologetic mewling from just outside the door. Mark's heart sank again. "What now?" he muttered as he opened the door once more, this time slowly, peering out. And then he saw her, a scruffy little cat, huddled against the side of the porch, her green eyes staring up at him in alarm. "Oh, come on," Mark groaned, running a hand through his hair. "Seriously?" Rachel knelt down beside Max, who was now sniffing curiously at the newcomer. "It looks lost," she said softly, the gentleness in her voice grounding him. Before he could voice his concerns, Emma and Grace joined them, their eyes lighting up at the sight of the tiny creature. "Can we keep it?" Grace squealed, her face breaking into a radiant smile. "Please, Daddy. She needs a home." Mark looked at the little cat, then at Rachel, who had a knowing smile spread on her face. It was a gentle reminder of the comfort of family, of feeling less isolated. In that moment, he realized how badly he needed them, needed laughter, needed the chaos of life. Maybe it wouldn't be so terrible to have a little more joy in their lives. All right, let us see how she does with Max first, he said, a reluctant smile creeping onto his face. Yay! Grace jumped up and down, clapping her hands and filling the space with contagious energy. Emma stepped forward, stretching a hand out to the cat as slowly as possible, whispering sweetly to her. As the group unified around Max and the newcomer, the tension began to dissolve. They played and laughed at the little quirks of the cat. She hesitated at first, but soon began rubbing against Grace's legs. Rachel caught Mark's eye and raised an eyebrow. Not too bad for a reunion, huh? Mark nodded, feeling lighter than he had in ages, as if each chuckle pushed away the weight he'd been carrying. Yet, an unsettling thought flickered across his mind despite the warmth of this moment. They still had much to face. The door slammed shut behind them, drawing their attention. Mark turned, startled. His parents stood in the doorway, worry etched across their faces. Oh no, Mark's stomach twisted. This was it. The moment he feared was finally upon him. Can we come in? His mother asked, her voice barely rising above the sounds of the wind. Mark felt the familiar weight settle back onto his shoulders. Would tonight really be the fresh start he hoped for? Or would the past come crashing back, sending them all spiraling into uncertainty once again? As the comforting chaos around him began to swirl into an uneasy silence, he felt the true challenge ahead. What awaited him now could change everything or break them apart once again. The air in the room hung heavy with unspoken words. Mark's heart raced as he exchanged glances with Rachel, Emma, and Grace. The laughter that had filled the air moments before evaporated, replaced by a simmering tension. Mom, Dad, he finally managed, his voice shaky. What are you doing here? His father stepped forward, hands shoved deep into his pockets. We, just wanted to check in on you on everyone. Mark studied their faces closely. They looked older, more fragile. His mother's eyes, usually so bright, brimmed with uncertainty, as if they held years of regret. And in that moment, every negative memory flooded back. The arguments, the silence, the loneliness. The weight of those moments pressed against him like a storm. Do we really need to do this now? Mark asked, crossing his arms. He fought to keep his voice steady, not wanting to sound accusatory. But the ache in his chest felt unbearable. Rachel stood beside him, her warmth a reassuring anchor. Maybe we should talk, she suggested gently, sensing the turmoil. I don't want to, Mark snapped, the words escaping his lips before he could think. He took a deep breath, calming the storm within. I've spent years moving past all this. But we're your family, his mother interrupted softly, her voice wavering. We want to make things right. We want to explain to show you we've changed. Something flickered in Mark, a mix of hope and skepticism. Would they truly want to change? Or was this another iteration of the same empty promises? We found someone, his father said abruptly, shifting uncomfortably. You may want to see his words trailed off as he motioned for someone to step forward. Mark felt his heartbeat quicken. From behind his parents emerged a young man, hesitant yet determined, a small dog at his side. He looked about Emma's age, maybe a little younger, but his expression carried an intensity that caught Mark off guard. Who are you? Mark demanded, his eyes narrowing. I'm Jake, the young man replied, glancing between Mark and his parents. Your brother. Silence engulfed the room, a silence so heavy it felt like a living thing. Mark's mind reeled. Brother? He'd grown up as an only child. Didn't he want anything to do with the past that had left him scarred and confused? Yet here was this stranger, standing before him with the unmistakable echoes of shared blood. You're kidding, right? He uttered, incredulity rising within him. Why didn't I know about you? Mom and Dad didn't let us, Jake said, his voice steady despite visible nerves. But we found each other. And I really want to know you. Mark felt a maelstrom of emotions: anger, betrayal, curiosity. The bonds they had strived to nail shut were suddenly cracking open. As the tension thrummed like a live wire, Grace and Emma slipped quietly to the side, watching wide-eyed, unsure of what to make of the events unfolding before them. In that moment, Mark realized just how fragile the web of family could be. It could rip apart at a moment's notice, or weave together something entirely new. He needed to decide, would he open this door or slam it shut once more? "What do you want from me?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before Jake could answer, Max bounded up beside him, sensing the turmoil. He nuzzled Mark's leg, grounding him as he searched for clarity. In that whirlwind of emotions, Mark knew one thing: this moment could redefine everything he thought he knew about family, love, and forgiveness. But would he be brave enough to let it? As he stared at his unexpected brother, Mark felt the threads of fate pulling him to a choice, a reckoning that could lead to healing or further heartache. And just then, a faint mewling came from the back door, breaking through the tension once more. Everyone turned to see the little cat, her green eyes wide and watchful. "Maybe she's waiting for a home, just like all of us," Rachel murmured, throwing a glance at Mark. What was he about to open himself up to? Would the presence of this long-lost brother bring him peace, or would it plunge him deeper into chaos? As the weight of those words sank in, Mark felt the ground shift beneath him. Nothing would be the same again. Mark stared at Jake, trying to wrap his mind around the truth that had just crashed into his life like a tidal wave. A brother? This was surreal. The silence in the room felt like it was closing in around him, thick and suffocating. Jake shifted nervously, dog tugging slightly on the leash. "I know this is a lot. I wanted to find you." Mark blinked, struggling to form a coherent thought. "You wanted to find me?" It felt like a riddle. His family had kept secrets, and now this stranger stood in front of him with a longing that mirrored his own buried desires. But could he really let someone in? "Mark," his father's voice was hesitant, almost pleading. "We were wrong not to tell you. We thought we were protecting you." "Protecting me? Or protecting yourselves?" Mark shot back, feeling the heat rise in his chest. Jake flinched, but stayed quiet. "Please, just listen," Jake said, stepping forward, his voice breaking through the tension. "I didn't know about you until last year. I was raised in foster care. I never had anyone, and we found each other a few months ago. Our parents, they're not the same ones you have. They're gone. It's just me now." The weight of those revelations snagged at Mark's heartstrings. Lost siblings. Foster care. Memories he never had the chance to share. Regret bloomed, tainted with curiosity. "Why now?" Mark questioned, feeling like the walls were shrinking in on him. "Why come here?" Jake rubbed the back of his neck, vulnerability plastered across his face. "I know we're strangers, and this is a lot to take in. But I want a chance to get to know you. To figure this out together." Mark glanced at his family, all of them tightly coiled and filled with anticipation. His mother's eyes shimmered with unspilled tears. There was pleading there, but also a flicker of hope. Could this be a chance to make something more out of what had been so broken? Rachel squeezed Mark's arm, her presence a reminder that he wasn't alone. "Everyone deserves a chance, Mark. Maybe this is yours." As he looked into Rachel's steady gaze, a warmth began to unfurl in Mark's chest. But it was entangled with something else: fear. What if letting Jake in meant opening a wound that would never heal? Mark hesitated, overwhelmed by the weight of his own words. The cat from earlier, the one that had slipped through the door, playfully approached Jake, twining around his legs. It was like a sign, innocent and untouched by the chaos surrounding him. "Maybe she knows how to find a way home," Rachel said softly. Mark's heart ached at that thought. Could he find a way home in this tangled web of strangers and secrets? Could he build something beautiful from the chaos? "Jake," he found himself saying, words spilling out as he took a step forward, but before he could finish, the doorbell rang. "Who could that be?" Emma asked, her brow knitting together in confusion. Mark felt the heaviness shift again, uncertainty swirling like a storm. He blinked, mind racing. Who could it possibly be? Just as they were on the brink of something monumental, this distraction threatened to pull them apart again. "What if it's someone from your past?" Grace whispered. The worry laced her tone, and Mark felt the unease settle back in. Taking a deep breath, he turned back to Jake, every fiber of his being urging him to make a choice. Should we find out? As the door creaked open and a familiar voice echoed from the other side, Mark braced himself for another revelation, one that could change everything once again. Mark's heart raced as the door swung open. On the threshold stood a woman with fiery red hair, her eyes wide with shock. "Mark? Is that you?" "Mom?" The word escaped him like a startled breath. Rachel's comforting presence fell away as Mark stepped closer, his thoughts racing. He hadn't seen her in years. Memories of family dinners and childhood laughter flooded back, but they were overshadowed by the ache of loss. He felt both joy and dread. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he managed to say, his voice trembling. I heard you were home. I couldn't wait any longer." Her gaze flickered to Jake, confusion knitting her brow. "Who is this?" "Mom, this is Jake. My brother." The words felt heavy, as if they were wrapped in the weight of all the family secrets that had never been spoken. "What?" Her eyes started between the two of them. "I don't understand." Jake stepped forward, his voice steady yet fragile. "I found Mark a few weeks ago. I wanted to meet him. I thought you should know." Mark's mom took a deep breath, visibly shaking as she processed their reality. "So, all this time you were searching?" "Not just for him," Jake replied, his voice cracking slightly. "But for a family. For answers." Tension hung thick in the air as Mark's mom took a step back, pressing her hands to her temples. I can't do this right now. It's too much. Mom, please." Mark's heart hammered in his chest. "I need you to tell me the truth." Her eyes glistened with tears. "You don't know everything. Your father, he made decisions that we all had to live with. I didn't agree with him, but I had to protect you." "Protect me?" Mark felt the anger bubble within him again. "But you didn't protect me from this. You let me think I was alone." Rachel stepped closer, sensing his anger. "Mark, don't. This is overwhelming for everyone. Do you want to explain to him, or should I?" Jake's voice tinged with frustration, but he quickly softened. "I didn't come here to make things worse. I just want to understand my family too." Mark's mom hesitated, then dropped her gaze to the floor. "Your father never wanted any of this to come out. He thought he could shield you from the bigger picture." "What picture?" Mark demanded, every word feeling like a lifeline cutting straight through the darkness. "Your father had his reasons. I wanted to tell you, but I thought it would put you in danger." "Danger?" Mark's world tilted. "From who, Mom?" At that moment, the tension in the room shattered as Jake's dog suddenly barked, startling everyone. The key to a door creaked somewhere deep within the house. Mark's eyes darted toward the shadowed hallway. "What was that?" "Someone else is here," Grace whispered, her voice tight with fear. Just then, a figure stepped into view, a man with familiar eyes, the air thickening with an energy Mark recognized at once. It was his father. The words hung between them, loaded with years of resentment and longing. Mark felt the world narrow until it was just him, his family, and the weight of hidden truths that threatened to collapse on top of them all. "Dad?" Mark breathed, his heart pounding. "What do you want to say?" And just like that, the story began to unravel in ways that none of them could have predicted. The truth was here again, staring them in the face, ready to redefine everything they thought they knew. Would it forge a new bond or irreparably shatter their already fractured family? Mark stood there, his mind a swirl of confusion and emotion. The man he hadn't seen in years, the father who had chosen silence over explanation, loomed just beyond the chaos, eyes heavy with remorse. "Mark," his father began, his voice thick with a mixture of frustration and guilt. "I need you to understand." "Understand what?" Mark interrupted, every word bursting from him like the tide. "All the years of questions? The pain of being abandoned? Explain it to me, because I'm struggling to see any reason that makes this okay." His father stepped forward, hands raised in a calming gesture. "I know I can't erase what has happened. I can't rewrite history. But I'm here right now to tell you that I've never stopped loving you. Loving me?" Mark barked back, disbelief lacing his voice. "Love doesn't walk away. Love doesn't hide." Jake watched the exchange from a distance, sensing the fracture rippling through the family. Can we all just take a breath? He suggested, his voice softer, crackling with sincerity. Let him speak. Rachel chimed in, her voice steady. This isn't just about you, Mark. Mark felt the heat rising in him, but at that moment, he glanced at Grace and Emma, their innocent eyes blinking up at him, filled with fear and confusion. They needed stability. They needed answers. Taking a deep breath, he tried to rein it in, to hear his father out. Your mother and I made choices out of fear, his father finally said, his voice lighter yet thick with emotion. When I learned about Jake, I thought the best way to protect you was to keep the past at bay. I didn't realize I was pushing you away, that it would harm you. An uneasy silence fell over the room as Mark processed the words. The anger still simmered beneath, but a flicker of understanding began to weave its way in. What do you want from me now? Mark asked, forcing his voice steady, aimed directly at the truth. What do any of us want? His father hesitated, worn but determined. I want to make things right. There are things you need to know about our family, about why we had to leave behind truths that were painful. I thought protecting you is the only way. Protecting us? Mark's throat tightened with emotion. We could have faced those truths together. Jake glanced between them, sensing the common ground. Just tell him what you know. Let him decide for himself. The invitation hung in the air. Mark's father drew a deep breath, then began to speak. There are secrets within our family that have affected us since before you were born. Your grandfather, he has a history. A dangerous history that could endanger everyone. Mark's heart raced. What do you mean? Is that why we had to hide? Exactly, his father said, eyes narrowing into a glimmer of regret. I was trying to shield you from a past that should have never put you at risk. When I realized, it was too late. Then your mother vanished, and I lost myself. I just didn't know how to reach back. The words hung between them like a fragile string woven of pain, yet something started to shift, a release of the darkness that had once consumed him. It glimmered with possibility. What do we do now? Mark asked, looking at the faces surrounding him, his family's future as delicate as the air around them. His father's gaze softened. We face it together. No more hiding. No more pretending. We dive into the darkness and emerge together, where the light lies. Tension lifted and a deep breath filled the room. This was a crossroads, and Mark realized he had the power to reshape his family. As he took a step forward, tiny hands slipped into his. He looked down. Emma and Grace were holding on, transmitting their courage. Daddy, we want you to stay. Emma's voice broke through the tension, steady and pure. We can face anything if we're together. Me too, Grace chimed in, her small voice filled with a strength that resonated with Mark's heart. In that moment, he felt the weight of love and forgiveness wrap around them like a warm blanket. This was a new beginning, a chance to start anew amidst the chaos of their intertwined lives. Mark turned to Jake, a tentative smile breaking through the storm. You want to be part of this too, don't you? Jake nodded, eyes widening with hope as he stepped forward. I'd be honored. Mark's gaze swept to his parents. This isn't easy for any of us, but we owe it to each other to be honest and brave. Murmurs of agreement echoed through the room as they stood, united, twisted, fractured, yet finally willing to mend. Together, they could face whatever lay behind the door, the past, present, and even the unknown future where healing awaited. In that moment of intimacy, laughter warmed the corners of their hearts and filled the air, restoring the essence of home. As Mark embraced this newfound possibility, a sense of peace washed over him. This was their family, imperfect yet real. Every flaw was a crack from which light could seep in. Let us make this our family night, he said, breaking the silence, his voice gentle, assuring. Pizza, stories, and maybe even a cat. Emma squealed and Grace bounced, their laughter echoing through the room. Mark looked around at the faces: children, parents, a brokering brother, a sister. All there, seeking a way to belong, to reconnect. And outside, the storm fled and the night embraced them, wrapping their bruised souls in hope. This was the moment of transformation where love intertwined with forgiveness, and life opened its doors to a future filled with promise. As the laughter drew them together, Mark found a way home, not just to the house, but to the family he had almost lost, now reclaiming the love they'd always deserved. Now more than ever, this was just the beginning. Do you feel the transformation? You need to subscribe now to not miss more exclusive stories like this. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this powerful ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible journey of redemption. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.